Morning, Michelle. How are you? Hey, Jack. How are you?
Great. I see you got the memo.
I guess. I guess. Trying to set up myself here so I can do standing up instead of sitting down.
Ah,
Just try something different for a while.
yeah, we had some folks here in the office that tried the standing desk.
Yeah.
I think about 2/3 of them dropped off in less than a year.
Yeah. I'm not sure I want to do it 8 hours a day, but I think it's good for things like this class. It makes sense to me anyway. So we'll see. Give it a try. All right. Well, I'm glad you liked the comments on the beef.
Oh yeah,
It is pretty good marketing, I'd have to say, at least in terms of getting people to hear your message. Whether it's accurate or not is another thing. But
well, Business North Carolina magazine just did an article on the meat business in small farm meat production.
yeah, I sent you a copy
You
of that.
sent
I
it
love
to
it.
me. That's right.
Yeah.
You sent it to
Yeah.
me. I spent a long time. I spent 2 hours talking to him, gave him a lot of those contacts that he interviewed and
Yeah.
mentioned. I also spent a good amount of time asking him not to say grass-fed beef was better than
Yeah.
traditional beef.
Yeah.
Never sinks in.
Yeah.
Cannot.
Well, either that or they're pursuing, what they believe will attract, readers or whatever. I mean, there's
Yeah,
always that side of journalism that it's one thing to write something, but if no one will read it, then what the hell have you accomplished? So,
yeah. The other thing we didn't discuss, but that I was having a cow about, was he was it looked like he was making the claim that all of these small farms were doing regenerative farming,
yeah,
and they're not.
yeah, another buzzword, right?
Yeah,
Well, the thing that struck me in reading that article and in talking to you and just generally my experience the last couple of years, when you look at rural economic development or rural economic activity, one of the things that happens quite often is the size of these startups or these small businesses are just really, really small. And it's hard. If you have some business grossing 100,000 a year, it's hard to hire employees and do all that kind of stuff. But what really struck me about that article, it kind of brought it home to me, was the revenue potential of these farms. I mean, these guys, I think in that example, Hickory Nut and there were some others, I can't recall their names, but I was struck by the number that we're talking about, the revenue number, the size, the number of employees. These are, it's a really, really exciting slice of rural economics from my worldview. And so I really like that. And the fact that there's so many in North Carolina, I think you told me there's 1,600
yeah.
people that do this. That's a hell of a lot of companies, man. I mean,
It's fast growing. The number is really fast growing, and there's a lot of folks who skip the raising and they just they partner with a farm.
Yeah.
Buy the animal, have it processed, and then they sell the meat from that animal. I've got a couple of folks I'm working with on that. But the fast thing is, we've been talking about, I've been trying, you mentioned Ron Simmons with Master Blend Farms keeps signing up. I'm not surprised he cannot find the time, but I've been working with him for 6 or 7 years. And it was like right before COVID, he quit his day job to focus on farming full time.
wow.
And he tells the story that his co-work, now he had some, a boss that mentored him.
Okay.
Told him how to go into business for yourself. He's had some folks giving him support, but his fellow employees were betting on how long he would last as a full-time farmer. They were betting against him.
Yeah.
And I talked to him a couple of days ago. He just bought 2 farms in order to grow the feed he needs for his animal operation. And we were talking about I know he's all over the country delivering and selling his pork, but he had some problems getting enough of it processed. He couldn't get it all scheduled, and so he's having to go to multiple processors. But he's also got a delivery problem where he's having to ship product by the pallet down to Atlanta, and that's his big market is Atlanta.
Okay.
And I know a lot of folks doing the meat, their big market is Richmond.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. But I was telling him that those guys who were betting against him he should go back and they should pay up double whatever they had been betting against him on.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm active on the North Carolina Rural Center board, and rural entrepreneurship is critical to the success of this. We have to figure out how people can start things, because government is not the answer. It can help around the fringes, but until there are people like you're describing, like this guy quitting his job, buying farms, growing, that's the story we need to encourage statewide, in my humble opinion. Well, hello everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully today I actually once again tested everything. So we'll see what happens. If I disappear as sound or anything else, just wave your arms, do something. So okay, so what we're going to do today is there's kind of a double purpose in this. One, I want to tell the story of someone who has overcome quite a few obstacles in order to get to where they are. But beyond that, also what I wanted to do was talk about, there's no such thing as a business model, right? The business model that applies uniformly. Like in the tech space, most of the technology companies, high growing technology companies, they all follow what they call a playbook. You go to the venture capital, you get the money, you hire lots of people. There's all these steps that you follow. And that is somewhat ubiquitous in the technology space. But in the small business space, in the area that we're all working in, there really isn't such a thing. There really isn't this kind of do it this way and you increase the odds of success. Certain things, yes, but there is no overarching, playbook, if you will. And this particular guy, what I like about this story, we're going to watch a video. It's only about 20 minutes long, so it won't take a really long time. But what I really like about this particular one, this guy who founded this company actually was more of the type of person you would expect to see in a technology startup, right? I think he went to Harvard. I'm not quite sure, but he has the kind of elite educational background, technology background, worked in technology, worked on Wall Street, all this kind of stuff. And now he sells vegetables, and it's a great story. And it really, to me, it makes the point that there are lots of different ways to do this. And in this particular case, I think it's a really good story, not only for where they are right now, which is over $1 billion valuation after 2 or 3 years in business, which is insane from my perspective, considering it's not a technology company. But even also how many startups this guy tried on his own before and really got smoked. I mean, he didn't do well on most of these startups. So that I think it's always good to hear about the failures as well as the successes. We tend to hear the successes and like, oh my God, this person walks on water, shit, my life is hell, I have all these problems. This you're going to see a little bit of a perspective, maybe someone you can relate to from a problem perspective, but also kind of a story about who knew vegetables could turn into this. So we're gonna name of the company is Misfit Market. Some of you are probably familiar with it, and so we'll watch this and then we'll talk a little bit about it. I assume everyone can see that.
Yep, looks good.
Is it full screen time?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Believe it or not, it's only a quarter of a screen on my computer. Crazy. Okay, of course. Let me see if I can. All right. Okay, so hold on. I sit and watched this thing this morning and now it will not play. So let me try something else here. Amazing. Okay, Dropbox. Sorry about that. Just take me 1 second here. As Maverick said to Iceman in the first Top Gun, I'm supersonic. I'll be there in 3 seconds. Okay, Dropbox.
This is why the guy didn't build a company.
What's that?
This is why the guy didn't build a technology company. Vegetables is easier.
I think you're absolutely right. Let's see here. Okay, I'm getting there. Not quite supersonic yet. Yeah, it's really strange how, you work it. I watched this video already. It works fine. And now it doesn't work. And I just don't get it. Don't really understand it. Okay, come on you. All right, open. All right, so Dropbox and we'll,
John and Craig, you guys have a show this afternoon, is that right? Or this evening?
John, Craig and John, do you guys have a show tonight?
Yeah, Craig's doing one tonight, I think at 8 o'clock.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Yes, 8 o'clock tonight. Sorry, Denise. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I'll do my best to be there.
Awesome.
and-
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Me too. I'll try it as well. Okay, where are you here? Sorry. This is crazy. Okay, here it is. All right, so now we'll try again. Share the screen. Oh. Huh. Okay, well. All right, well, I cannot seem to get it to play. Very bizarre. I'm going to try one more thing here. Sorry, folks. I'm blowing to me. I shouldn't have said anything before I started, right? Okay. All right. Okay. Here. Okay. Okay, well, I am struggling with this one. Hang on a second. I'll be right back. Oh, YouTube. Okay, well. Well, I apologize. I can't get this to play. I'm not quite sure why. It's really frustrating. I'm gonna try one more time on the downloaded. You guys are very patient. I appreciate it.
You need more interns.
Oh, I got a great one in Grant, luckily. Okay, I think hopefully we got it. Let's see here. I'll share my screen again. Here we go. Famous last words.
What I probably took too lightly at the time, looking back, was that like, if for whatever reason, I would be sitting with a ton of credit card debt if that whole thing didn't pan out.
Misfits Market is an online grocery delivery service that sells ugly, imperfect produce for cheap. In 2020, Misfits Market shipped 77 million pounds of food to more than 400,000 households across the US. But in just the first 4 months of 2021, Misfits Market procured the same amount of food as it did in all of 2020. In fact, since launching in 2018, Misfits Market has expanded to both coasts and has over 1,000 employees, and it has received over $300 million in funding. Bloomberg reports its valuation tops $1 billion, putting it into unicorn territory. But Misfits Market wasn't an obvious success. In fact, it was just one of many businesses started by its 29-year-old founder, Abi Ramesh. There are 3 numbers to look out for in this story. 35,000, the amount Abi left on the table to pursue his dream of entrepreneurship. 150,000, the amount of credit card debt he personally took on to launch Misfits Market. And 350 million, Misfits Market's expected sales for 2021.
Perfect. All right, thanks. Take it away, Nate.
Here's how Abi Ramesh built Misfits Market into an online grocery juggernaut. For CNBC Make It, I'm Nate Skid. This is Founder Effect. Abi's story starts like so many others. When his parents were just 28 years old, they risked it all to move he and his brother from India to the US in search of more opportunity and a new life. His family settled in suburban Atlanta, where he spent a lot of time alone in his bedroom, dreaming up crazy ideas for potential ways to get rich. Then he discovered Amazon Marketplace and saw his first business opportunity.
My idea was, we have all these required reading books and textbooks that like high school made us buy every year, and then they went stale after 12 months and no one knew what to do with them. And so I basically went to all my classmates and was like, I will buy your textbooks and your required reading books for, $20, $30, money that matters to you. And then I'd go and resell all of this on Amazon for, $80 or $90. And for me, it was like a huge deal. It was my first time doing any of this stuff. I kind of learned how to be scrappy, how to get something off the ground.
That wasn't the only or even most successful business he started in high school. His parents were adamant that he get good grades, apply to top colleges, and nail his SAT. It was the latter where he found an income stream.
I had an SAT tutoring company in the back half of my high school years because I got a really good score on the SAT and I had a few friends who scored well as well. And so we ended up banding together and built a tutoring program and basically sold tutoring service to other people.
He considered his ventures as hobbies, just a way to earn some cash on the side. But the experience left a taste in his mouth for the freedom that comes with entrepreneurialism.
Here I am sitting in a building with 1,000 other people, doing the same thing, and it certainly wasn't as fun as like reselling books on Amazon, which is kind of crazy to say. So I ended up actually getting drawn back into the entrepreneurship world, and I actually restarted that tutoring company that I've been kind of working on in high school.
This time, he added a software component and developed a predictive algorithm. The only limitation for the company was his time. In 2012, 2 years into the finance program at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, he made a decision to put his education on hold.
I was like, I can't do this for real while I'm in school. So I took a year off from school. These days, gap years are a lot more common. Back then, it wasn't common. So I actually got a lot of heat from the Ped administration, from my parents for dropping out of college for a year. I moved to San Francisco and then I lived in LA for a little bit. I worked on a bunch of startups.
Abhi actually raised $25,000 from an incubator to build something. Anything. He founded 3 companies in quick succession. First, there was the men's shopping platform called Trendbent.
We got off the ground, we got like 5,000 customers, they were paying, and then we're like, this is too hard of a business to scale. Big mistake, because now there's a company called Stitch Fix, which does pretty much the exact same thing.
Then there was Store Talk, a social media shopping application.
Social buying. Interesting idea, I think it was probably early for the times.
Then he took on healthcare.
All 3 of these didn't go well, so I was like, okay, I think getting a company off the ground is hard and probably not for me.
After taking stock of his failures, he realized he skipped a crucial step. He needed some real-world experience. So he finished his degree and went to work at an asset management company called Apollo, where he landed in a department called Opportunistic Investing. But while he was there, he befriended a colleague who ended up at a prominent VC firm. That friend would later play an outsized role in Misfit's market success.
I lasted 10 and a half months, 11 months. And the reason I remember that and not a year is it was actually a big decision. You get a bonus at year end, 12 months in.
That decision cost him a bonus of about $35,000.
What was painful for me was being on the investor side of the table. We met management teams of these incredible companies that had scaled from 0 to X over the course of 3, 4, 5 years. The misery for me was less so I hate my job. It was more so like my job's fine. I really want that guy's job. Like that's really what I want to be doing. And I've tasted enough of it. I tried this in college. I tried this in high school. They didn't quite work, but like I have the foundation. Now I have a finance background. I understand how to code. I've tried a few things a few times and failed. Like I think that I need to take a crack at this again.
So in 2014, he moved back to San Francisco and started yet another company with 2 co-founders, an intensive 12-week coding boot camp called Horizons. That company lasted just over 2 years and graduated some 700 students. But it was apple picking while on a rural farm in Pennsylvania with his girlfriend, where he put it all together.
I don't want this to sound like this is like the cliche light bulb moment. I think it's part of the light bulb moment. There's a couple of different light bulb moments, but I spent some time talking to the farmer there and I was like, hey, like who do you sell to and what do you do with all these things? And I think the most interesting thing was I was like, all the apples are on the ground. Very few of them are on the trees. What do you do with all these apples on the ground? And he was like, well, those are like number 2 and number 3 grade apples. Those can't really be sold to stores. So we'll put them in the cold storage shed for a month and a half. And if we can't sell them to our neighbors or anything like that, we'll toss them.
In high school, he discovered arbitrage, buying textbooks low and selling high. In college, he learned about building a distribution company with Trendbent. He saw the importance of creating a seamless shopping experience with Store Talk, and at Apollo, he was at the table as startups pitched their ideas on how to scale up. But he couldn't shake what that farmer told him about what happens to those number 2 apples.
By the time it kind of got to a point where, okay, the idea is sort of bursting out of my head, and I have a pretty good plan on how to implement it and get off the ground, the end of the Horizons days were already there. And so we ended up shutting that down. And I was like, all right, my next thing is I'm going to get this company off the ground. It wasn't named at the time. And so I moved to Philadelphia permanently and said, all right, let's do this thing. Drove back to actually the exact same farm that we did that apple picking in.
Really?
Yep, that same farm.
He found a USDA list of organic farms in the region and called every one of them, 50 in all. Then he spent the next few months building relationships with about a dozen farmers. His goal was to get them to sell them their number 2 or 3 produce cheap, dirt cheap. So each time he visited their farms, even if it was just to say hi, he'd buy about $50 worth of produce.
I lived in a studio apartment. I started stacking, I had like peaches, apples, tomatoes, onions, all in my apartment. There was no business to sell them yet, but like it was just my way of saying thank you for your help. So I'd keep buying this stuff.
Meanwhile, he built a pre-order page on Shopify to see if there was demand for ugly organic produce. All he needed was a healthy list of email addresses.
So you saw the supply side. You knew that there was supply, right? You went apple picking, you see the apples, but like, what was your sense of the demand? Because, you know, these are farmers. They understand that they have this number 2 apples, whatever they're called. They didn't see that opportunity. So why did you?
I think the short answer is because I'd spent so much time trying to build these other consumer-facing businesses, whether it's the social shopping, social buying app, or Trendbent, the fashion one, or even like the tutoring companies. I spent a lot of time selling to consumers and other products, not food, obviously. And I had a pretty decent sense of what would resonate in terms of value proposition. And I think the idea that I could buy something that on the supply side wasn't valued and sell it to a set of consumers at a lower price point, therefore transfer that value to them. I had a hunch that there was demand there.
He spent $150 on a logo, $1,000 on ads, and then did the unthinkable. He took out 5 credit cards and maxed them all out.
I applied for a bunch of different credit cards, approved on all of them, got a decent limit across all of them, and basically put those credit cards on Google and Facebook and started spending against those credit limits.
All on outreach.
All on outreach.
And how much, can I ask, do you think all in on those credit cards you put? Because that's a big investment in yourself, man.
It has big risk too, because by the way, what I probably took too lightly at the time, looking back, was that like, if for whatever reason, I would be sitting with a ton of credit card debt if that whole thing didn't pan out. But, it was probably $100,000 to $150,000 across those credit card limits spent on paid advertising.
On a product, on a promise that you can deliver ugly fruit.
Maybe even one step further than that, all I was acquiring were email addresses, nothing else. So on the bet that some chunk of those email addresses would convert to real customers, and that was something I didn't know, right? Like I probably ended up getting like 5,000 to 10,000 email addresses, something like that, maybe a few more than that. The bet was some large percentage of those email addresses would convert to customers who would pay for a box. That part I didn't de-risk.
To say Abi was bailed out by a close friend who happens to be an angel investor is a bit of a stretch, but not a big one. Edward Lando provided a crucial influx of cash, helping Abi pay off his credit card debt so he could start buying inventory.
He was like, this looks interesting. I think you're gonna have to raise some money for it pretty soon. Otherwise those credit card bills are gonna come crashing down on you. And again, I'd spent some time in finance. So I also know that like, if I had gone out to go raise institutional capital from traditional funds without a real business, without revenue, without like a deck, I would be laughed out the door.
To keep overhead low, Abi rented everything. A 700 square foot storage facility, the fridge in the corner to keep the produce cold, the trucks he'd use to deliver his packages. He found a couple of employees on Craigslist to help him box up the orders and used a navigation app on his phone to help him find the most efficient delivery route. He maxed out at 15 boxes a day.
And so at some point I need to get more drivers. And so I actually started hiring drivers, renting more vans. I realized about a month in that us delivering on our own vehicles would prevent scaling this quickly, because it's a whole different beast, scaling kind of like a logistics infrastructure for last mile.
By the end of 2018, Misfit's Market was shipping about 200 boxes a week, which got the attention of his buddy from Apollo. The one who left to work for that VC firm.
And so I had kind of explained to him the whole story, like, hey, this is what I did after I left the company where we worked at, built this coding school. Now here's what I'm doing here at Misfit's Market. And he's like, cool, interesting, keep me updated. And I would keep him updated pretty much every week and be like, hey, we're shipping 20 boxes a week. Now we're shipping 60 boxes a week. Now we're shipping 200 boxes a week. And at one point in time, we're probably shipping a couple hundred orders a week. He was like, hey, you want to talk to our investment team
Green Oaks Capital put up $2 million in that first round and offered to provide any future VC the company needed.
And I didn't shop around the offer. I didn't go try to raise money from 10 other people, just because I wasn't optimizing for that at the time. It wasn't about getting the best valuation or the least dilution. It was really just here are partners that believe in me, believe in what we're trying to do here, and they're willing to move quickly, and I don't have to waste my time doing 3 months of fundraising.
How long was the timeline between your picking apples to you sold your first box?
4 weeks, a month.
It was time to invest in all areas of the business, from physical operations and customer service to the fulfillment center and the marketing department.
Actually, I think the first official hire was someone to run customer service, just because people were writing a bunch of questions being like, what is this fruit and where's my box? And so we had a customer service hire who still works for us, by the way, I'm proud to say. Our second hire was someone on the fulfillment and operations side to help manage the warehouse. And our third hire was someone to run purchasing and procurement, to go and build these farm relationships, to scale them, to manage the weekly purchasing, to figure out, how much we needed.
Abhi set aggressive goals for the company, but Misfit's Market easily beat them. Its customer base doubled week after week. In under a year, Misfit's Market went from a 700 square foot warehouse into a 10,000 square foot facility. But Abhi wasn't about growth for the sake of growth. The bigger Misfit's Market became, the more leverage he had, and the lower the company's prices.
This kind of goes to the logistics point that I made earlier. For us, growth and scale, they're important from a business perspective because it's important for every business to grow and scale. But for us, it was also important because growth and scale meant we're able to kind of provide access to a much larger chunk of people more quickly. It's that flywheel. That growth and scale means that we have more efficient operations because we can leverage scale. More efficient operations means lower costs, means we can pass on more savings to customers. If we pass on more savings to customers, you go back to that access part of the flywheel, the access affordability part of the flywheel, and it keeps spinning. So that was always the goal, was to grow really quickly, get out to as many zip codes as possible so we can serve as many people as possible, leverage that scale to drive cost efficiencies, leverage those cost efficiencies to drive further access and affordability. Hence, growth was always, it was grow, not just to grow because growth, big numbers are good, but because it is fundamentally part of our mission and good for our value proposition.
By employing a large network of third-party carriers for the last mile, Misfit's Market was able to expand into every single zip code in New Jersey and New York. Then came the pandemic.
It was basically the week of March 7th or something like that, I think, was when everything, went crazy. And we actually ended up having to turn off our checkout page because we could accept no new customers. We maxed out capacity in our fulfillment center. We turned off checkout for about 45 days or so while we kind of went through that backlog just to make sure that we were serving our existing customers effectively before we took on a bunch of new customers.
Misfit's Market growth is continuing unabated. By March 2021, exactly 1 year after COVID closed down the economy, Misfit's Market was 5 times larger with a valuation of $1.1 billion. In April 2021, Misfit's Market received its Series C funding of $200 million. Last year, Misfit's Market opened an online marketplace where customers can buy staples like pasta, flour, and herbs. In its first full year in business, Misfit's Market generated about $200,000 in revenue. By the end of 2021, Abhi expects that number to hit $350 million.
And I guess one of my final questions for you would be, what was your biggest money mistake you made building the company?
We moved fulfillment centers basically 4 times in our first year and a half of existence. That was challenging, picking up and moving 10 employees, then 40, then 200 and 500 employees, and an entire operation that large is a challenging thing to do. And it's costly as well, because you're running 2 fulfillment centers at any given point in time, you're shifting things back and forth. Part of that is I didn't necessarily trust the growth. I was okay, we're gonna grow, but I don't really know if we're gonna go 4x in the next year, so I don't really wanna go invest in that quite yet, in that infrastructure. Looking back, we probably should have done that.
Abhi built an incredible operation in Misfit's Market, but it's sitting on a foundation his parents created by taking an enormous risk on a better future. And now that Abhi's older than his parents were when they immigrated to the US, the weight of their decision is becoming clear to him every day.
My dad especially told me that a ton. He's I've always wanted to go start a business. They didn't necessarily have the opportunity, and they've almost given me that opportunity by sort of like setting me up in this position and sort of like moving here and pay for college, all that kind of good stuff. So the way that they would talk about it and I talk about it as well is like I am probably a continuation of their American dream, you know? And I view it that way as well, right? It's like one holistic picture. It's like, cool, like my family came here, they sacrificed a lot to sort of make all this happen. Entrepreneurship was something they were probably interested in. My father certainly was, but something they couldn't do. I've been able to do it, so it kind of ties all the way back.
Okay. Well, we got through it. I'm impressed, you know, it's, you never know. A couple observations before I open it up. What's very unusual about this guy, in my experience, is when he is talking about raising capital and hiring people and, you know, just all of this stuff related to growth. His reason for doing it is completely unlike the typical person in that role, where he says, what this enabled us to do was to lower our prices and serve more people. So his why he's doing it, in addition to, you know, other things, but one of his thing, their mission statement is to provide access to healthy fruits and vegetables. And instead of saying, well, we can grow so we can make much more profit, he's saying we're growing so we can serve more people. And I just think it's wonderful. And it's a very unusual kind of set of circumstances, or whatever the right word is, for this kind of business. And I think also the mentality that he has. I mean, you saw how many startups he had in a very short period of time. And the other thing that you should know is Apollo, where he worked, I believe, is the largest private equity firm in the world. I'm pretty sure they are. If not, they're second to Blackstone. So this was a very elite company that he was working with, that he quit to sell vegetables. But anyway, I'll throw it open, but I did want to make some of those observations about his why and his purpose, and what he's doing with the scale and how he's making this available to more people. Anybody want to comment? I'm going to call on you if you don't just volunteer. I warn you. Ruth, what do you think?
I don't want to get called on, so I'll pipe up. So I
Okay.
apologize. I'm driving. I'm coming back from farmers market. But what I found interesting about him and other successful entrepreneurs is that what sometimes looks like an overnight success is truly something that's been going on for years and years. And that he used his past, what would say maybe failures, to really figure out what he needed to do for this success. And I think that was one of the key takeaways for me.
Yeah. It's like they talk about a duck, right? The duck is just serenely floating there on the pond, but underneath their legs are going like crazy. So Bob, did you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button.
Oh, no problem. Julian, how about you, Julian Milling? I think it's Eric, right? Okay. Taking a break. Anybody else want to comment while we're on this subject? Denise?
I appreciated that his first hires were like, what do we need the most? Instead of like, hey, let's build the team, right?
Yeah.
I feel like as small businesses, that's kind of the game we have to play too, is like, all right, I'd really like to have all the staff, but right now, like his first one was customer service, because someone's got to answer all these people's questions. And then someone's got to fulfill orders, and then someone's got to go curate all this stuff. So I needed to be reminded of that. It's important.
Okay. That's good. Tiffany, what do you think?
Well, I know if you fail at something, you learn from your failures, and eventually it may work out, if you can, he's proved. So
Yeah.
there's hope for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think it was ingrained in him from he was a little kid, right? The parents were very supportive of this kind of thing. And I think that helps keep you on the path. I mean, most people in their 20s, I'm not sure they would have started that many businesses. I mean, the kid moved to San Francisco twice. I mean, it's pretty insane if you just kind of step back and think about, I don't know anybody who lives like that. So, Kyle, what do you think?
Well, one of the things I found interesting, and my question to the class would be, how many of us at 20, 40, or 50 would invest 5 credit cards to $150,000 to do this? I mean, I feel like I'm pretty much a gambler on myself, but I don't even know that I would have pushed all in that far. So, that was impressive. And like I said, not knowing whether you were going to 2x, 3x, 4x in the course of a year. So that was a pretty good gamble, I think, for him, quite honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also, moving his operation, did he say 4 times in 1 year? Is that what he said? Think about that. And he said, first we had 10 people, and we had 20, then we had 500, whatever it was. I mean, think of just that alone blows my mind. The moving of something like that. Think of all that equipment and those, conveyor belts, et cetera, et cetera. So that had to be expensive. Is fantastic. Yeah, Michelle's commenting that the fact that he had that much credit at that age is impressive. And I think, he did work some pretty high powered jobs. So when he worked at Apollo, I guarantee he's making at least $500,000 a year in that role, would be my guess. So he built up the credit. But interestingly, he applied for the credit cards when he was doing this. He didn't already have them, right? So that's even more impressive. He physically made the choice to go get the credit cards and then spend it, as opposed to somebody who already had the credit cards. Small difference, but it goes to his commitment and his mentality. But the other thing I want to point out is this guy is selling produce, right? I mean, that's what he's doing. And that's pretty impressive to me that he's done all that. And if you go to their site, you'll see they're now selling lots of other stuff as well. They have kind of a marketplace, if you will. I'm not sure if any of you could put your products on there. I haven't looked into that. But I think that's a possibility. You might be able to be a vendor for them. Might make sense. I'm not sure. So that's pretty good. Any other comments or thoughts about this? Okay. One thing I'm going to get on the calendar, I participated in a webinar yesterday that was put on by Walmart. And it was just fascinating. And I think many of you will find it interesting. Their strength, believe it or not, is food and beverage. That's what they sell more of than anything else. I believe they're the #1 grocer in the United States now. I think that's what they said. They also said that they are, I'm trying to remember my statistics, something like 46% of Americans shop at Walmart at least once a month. And some higher number or some slightly lower number shop there every week. And their approach to e-commerce, they refer to it as omni-channel. So if you do business with them and you want to get on Walmart.com, they're also going to encourage you to put your products in their stores if there's a fit there. They believe that the customer seeing it in both places makes a really big difference for purchases. If you see your product in the store and you see it online, it might catch your attention more than just being in one place or the other. So we will take a look at that explanation or that video or webinar, and it is oriented toward getting ready for the fourth quarter for the holiday season. So I think it'll be helpful to everybody. But I was very impressed with some of the statistics from this webinar. So. Okay, well, that's really all I have today, unless anybody wants to, has anything else they want to bring up?
Dennis, if you've got a second, I don't know how you laid out the class moving forward, but one of the thoughts that have come up in several conversations is co-packers and maybe moving towards that line. I know that I've had a conversation with a couple of classmates, and that had come up that the direction, the possibility, is it a fit? Where is their need? I don't know if you could interject or have any thoughts on that, but I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I worked with a number of co-packers in a business I had a few years ago. They were in Virginia and New Jersey is where they happened to be. And it was in the beverage space. So that's a known thing. You have to have a co-packer if you're going to be in the beverage business for the most part. I don't know if maybe Jack could speak up here with his experience, more broadly than mine. But I think, depending on your volume and what it is that you're selling, the co-pack, in our case, we had no choice. We had to have a co-packer because we had no ability to, to bottle our product. But anyway, Jack, what do you think?
I'm not that familiar with in detail about the co-packers in the state. I know that there are a few, very few, but I think they're still able to take customers, but they're only able to go up to a certain level. And so if you're getting to like regional or national distribution, they often cannot do that. And then finding somebody within the state that can handle higher volumes is a challenge, to where I probably know more folks who've had to go out of state in order to get larger production runs than have been able to do it within the state. That's one shortcoming the state has right now, is not able to really do larger scale co-packing.
Okay, I'll dig in, Kym and Ruth, and see what there is. But I will share that one of the things that happened to us was the co-packers would respond to their bigger customers to your detriment. So, if you're doing everything you're supposed to do, you're paying your bills, and all of a sudden, Pepsi Cola comes in our case, and the line is closed to us, totally randomly out of the blue, no chance to plan. And it's one of the reasons a lot of people, end up doing their own production one way or the other, whether it's the meat producers who end up, setting up their own USDA butcher operation. Anything external has got these kind of strange things. And when you're dealing with a finite resource like a co-packer, there's just not that many of them. And frankly, it's incredibly low margin business, right? They can't charge you a lot or you're not going to use them. So it's strictly a volume game. So if, Pepsi calls you up, they're going to kick little Dennis to the side, because the volume from Pepsi, even at pennies, is just so much more. But I will dig in and see what I can find out, Kym, and that would be what you're really talking about is some kind of back office production, not just co-packing, but really, getting your product made by someone other than yourself, working your butt off in the kitchen or whatever. So I get that, and let me see what I can learn about that.
Dennis.
Yeah.
This is Renata, and
Hey, Renata.
we do have a co-packer.
Cool.
It does take a few steps to get there, FDA approval and that sort of thing, but they do work with you on that, so that you're kind of not in the dark completely.
Okay.
You'll go and after we get through with this session today, I'll look where I found a list of North Carolina co-packers.
Okay.
I think it was on the North Carolina State website.
Yep.
But I will give you a link to find that co-packer list of North Carolina. And just like Jack said, or you say, I'm not sure, but they do work in small quantities.
Right.
Dad and I are trying to expand a business, and they keep telling me that, oh yeah, we can handle it. But in the back of my mind, I don't think they can. Because when you do an order and it takes over a month or so to get your order back to you, And
Yeah.
it's not but, you know, 1 or 2 kettles of barbecue sauce. Well, how are they going to do a truckload of barbecue sauce?
Yeah. Well, these are all good problems to have, right? Your volume is such that you got to solve this problem. So, you know, that's cool. Well, I accept that. But, you know, I appreciate that offer to do that, spread that list, and I'm sure the class will find it helpful. And, you know, I'll take a look at it. I may know some of the folks, and maybe I'll invite one of them to come and give us a presentation, just so we get a kind of a starting off point, if you will, or an awareness of how that process works. So I will work on that. Thanks for that suggestion, Con. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Anyone else got anything? All right. Well, another day with technical glitches. Gotta love it. And it's just, it's a never ending thing, I guess, but we made it through, and I appreciate your patience. And Grant will get this video up. So if you want to watch this guy again, I could not find this article just on the internet in general. I'm sure it is somewhere, but I had downloaded it previously, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it. So maybe it got taken down or whatever. But thanks everybody. And well, let me just check real quick. I see several chats here. Let me just check that real quick. See what we got. Chat. Okay. Yeah. So people are basically commenting on this conversation. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody. And we'll see you Monday. Take care.
Thanks, Dennis.
Bye.
Have a blessed day.
Thank you.